making ourselves comfortable. Make yourself comfortable. Now, in the tradition of meditation, and I'm going to assume that there are at least a couple of you who haven't done this kind of meditation before. So I'm going to go through it stepwise. And also, I'll talk a little bit more than I would in other settings, because the talking is a reminder to come back. It helps when you wander a lot. It's more distracting if you're able to stay in the present and focus on your own. So you can just tune me out if that's your situation. So just make yourself comfortable and spend some time really thinking about what that means. I mean, I'm seated in a chair. So if you're seated like I am, my suggestion is that you have the upright part of your body, your torso, centered. So from your waist up, you're upright, centered, and balanced. So your spine or the core of your body is centered over your center of gravity. And you can experiment with that. You can sort of move back and forth a little bit, and it probably will help if you close your eyes. So if you're comfortable with that, you can close your eyes now and just feel your body from the inside. And adjust this posture a little bit. Just adjust it so that it feels right. Now, what feels right to you isn't the same as for anyone else, so feel free to make this posture work for you and to adjust it whenever you like. And if at some point it becomes uncomfortable or feels out of balance, just start over again or move any way that you like or lie down on the floor. Whatever you like is fine. And so with your eyes closed, or if your eyes are open, just directing your gaze downwards so that you're less distracted by your visual world. Just let the whole body come to stillness. Let the feet rest on the floor. Let the hands rest on your legs, or maybe in your lap. You can let your belly release any unnecessary holding. We often tighten a little bit there. Just let that soften if that's comfortable. You can let your shoulders drop down a bit to their natural place. And you can let your face release any unnecessary holding, maybe around or behind the eyes or the forehead or the mouth or jaw. Just let all those places be as they are, not trying to relax them, but just trying to allow them to be as they are. And just pausing here for a moment to feel how you are. All of the activity of this day or this week or this lifetime, just feeling it. And just letting it all find its natural way of resting, letting it all settle by itself. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to make it change. You can just let it be. The mind is just like the ocean. It has waves. And then it has parts that are nothing but stillness as far as you can see. And then bringing the attention to meet the sensation of the breath. And not forcing it, but just noticing that that sensation is here. You might find this sensation most easily in the belly. You can feel how the body expands to allow the breath to enter. And you can feel how the body returns to where it began as breath is released. You might find it in the sensation of the nostrils, feeling the breath there, whatever is best for you. And then not just noticing that that sensation is here, but getting closer to it, leaning into it, and seeing how much of that sensation you can feel. Not just a moment at a time, but meeting the sensation of the breath and then staying right there through an entire cycle, all the way from the beginning of the inhalation till the end of the exhalation and every moment in between. And in that silence, you probably noticed that your mind wandered. You might have noticed that it wandered constantly. There was nothing but thinking. And that might be frustrating or irritating or disappointing. And if it's possible, recognizing that, as we said earlier, your mind is constantly generating thoughts. And those thoughts are constantly going to draw attention away. And that's not a problem. In fact, what we're trying to learn is to recognize those thoughts, to notice them when they happen. So when you catch wandering that's just happening right then, actually, you've just succeeded. And since you're back in your present moment, noticing exactly what is in that moment, you can decide to come back to the breath simply. No drama, no struggle, no judgment, self-criticism, or irritation necessary. A simple noticing and a simple return is all that's needed. So coming back to the brush that's still here, fresh and unfolding in each moment. And not just noticing it, not just noticing it closely, but entering it completely, as if your awareness and the sensation of breath could meet and mix and merge together, traveling together just like that from moment to moment, from breath to breath. We live our life on the surface, as if we were on the surface of the ocean, buffeted by the waves, subject to the storms, the rain, the hail, the lightning and thunder. And allowing yourself to let go of all of that activity, all of that drama, and just drop down a bit farther beneath the surface, just dropping down into water that's more still, that's more cool, that's silent. The waves and the weather are still there. You don't have to make them go away. You're just dropping down into a place that is stillness and silence and peace, maybe just for an instant, just letting go completely into that. And using the comforting rhythm of the breath, the stability of the reassuring cycle of breath to help you to remain right here, fully in contact with each moment. Let's expand our focus a bit now from the breath. And for just a few minutes, we're going to shift our focus from breath to sound. And so letting your attention open to meet the sounds that are present in your environment right now, wherever you are, whatever that is. And seeing how much it's possible to hear in each moment, listening as closely and as fully, as deeply as you can. Listening even more closely, maybe there are even more subtle sounds hidden underneath or behind the ones that are more obvious. Maybe the sounds have subtle variations or textures that you hadn't noticed at first. Noticing that you can't make a sound happen and you can't keep a sound that's been heard. All that you can do, all that this practice asks of you, is to open your awareness, to be receptive and open and make contact with whatever it is that occurs. So doing that for just another minute or so. And then letting the sounds continue, but directing the attentions away from the sound as we moved away from the breath, and just focusing on how you are right now. How is it for you in this crazy, uncertain moment of change, of hope, of promise, of fear and despair, of joy and sorrow? How is it to be you right now? What does it feel like? And there might not be anything at all, but just ask the question, how am I right now? Maybe an ache in the chest, a tightness somewhere, maybe in the throat, maybe something heavier, deeper, or moving deep in the pit of the stomach. I'm not trying to make that sensation solid. Whatever it is that could be felt would be very vague. Emotions don't have sharp edges. They're sensed through the body, felt around, felt into. Just asking yourself one last time, how is it for me right now in this journey, right in the middle of this journey between birth and death, in the middle of this life, precious, fleeting, intense? What's it like? And if at any point an emotion becomes uncomfortable, if it feels too intense, if it creates instability, come back to the breath. You can open your eyes, feel your feet on the ground, your hands in your lap, your bottom on the seat, and just take a few breaths and focus on breath or body if you'd like. Let's shift the focus again. I'd like you to call to mind an experience that was challenging or difficult, or maybe slightly unpleasant or uncomfortable in some way. Not the worst experience, not a terrible experience, just something that had an element of difficulty. And call that situation to mind. And see what comes along as you remember that situation. Remembering where you were as if you could see the environment around you. Remembering what it felt like to be there, maybe who you were with and what they looked like, what was on their face. Remembering what was said and what happened. And then around that story, feeling into yourself, what's here? It might be an emotion. It might not be the emotion that you had at the time. It might be nothing. Just be curious to see what comes up. Emotions, this kind of emotion, and most emotions, create sensation in the core of the body. So look in your throat, in your chest, in the area of your heart, deep in your belly. Is there anything there? If there's nothing there, just rest in the breath and see what happens. One last imagining. Imagining a situation that brought you joy or happiness or satisfaction or love, an experience that really felt good or right. And remember that experience, that situation, as we did with a difficult experience, bringing it to mind, feeling it in the body, imagining the people, imagining what was there, the person that you might have been with, how it felt, and feeling that. Sometimes it helps to put your hand over your heart, and if that's comfortable for you and makes sense, you can place your hand on your heart as a way of directing attention there. Feeling the aliveness of the body as the breath moves. feeling the sensitivity, the freshness and openness and warmth of the heart underneath. And using the memory of an event to call up something that might be felt inside. And then for the last few minutes, letting that image and that memory also fade, allowing whatever remains to be here, but not focusing on it as we were, and coming back to the breath. But as we settle back into the cycle of breath, our home base for this practice, where we began and where we now return, remembering that when distractions happen, when you are distracted by sounds or by sensations in the body or by memories or thoughts that call up strong emotions, that it's possible to hold them in your practice. That mindfulness isn't about attaining a blank slate. It's about being with what is actually here. And it isn't necessary to manipulate that at all, but just to meet it openly, to hold steady in whatever way you choose, and then to direct your attention towards that or away from that, however you like. So taking the last minute of this practice to settle back with the breath. And so concluding this practice, just letting your attention rest, not asking it to do anything or go anywhere. Remembering the room around you. And then when you're ready, opening your eyes. But as much as is possible, resting right here. Resting right here. And staying with the feeling of being here, if that's possible, for a bit. And you may not be a regular practitioner of meditation, but you probably know somebody who's nuts about it. And the reason why that happens isn't because we attain some blissful peace. Moments of peace happen, sure. But the reason why people actually find it so compelling is that it helps us to connect with the preciousness of this life that we actually have, to feel it more deeply and more intensely, and to see it more clearly. And it's really helpful to have a life that's deeply felt and clearly seen. So it looks like there are a couple of questions there. Hannah put up the
Somebody said how to find you.
URL.
Somebody asked like how to find your classes, and Yeah,
I
can
see.
you see John Davis's question too? It's in the Q&A
Yes.
section. Yeah.
Okay. So I actually haven't taught our foundation course for quite a few years, and this summer I am, because all of my travel, I usually travel during the summer and do retreats and things like that. They've all been canceled. And so I'm teaching 2 8-week foundation classes that they're, I don't want to, I'm not advertising, but they're wonderful programs. We've taught more than 20,000 people to practice mindfulness in the greater Philadelphia area. And of course, now that we're doing it online, we have people from all over the country. And so check it out if you're curious, Penn Program for Mindfulness. If you have a regular practice, I'm leading a virtual online 3-day retreat later in July. I forget the date, 23rd, 24th, 25th, maybe. It's a weekend. And John's question, I can't see John's question.
So he says, I can just read it to you. So he says, with the practice of mindfulness meditation, is it possible we learn that emotions are thoughts packed with extra super energy?
That's a really interesting question. I mean, I'm using the word emotions as if we all agree on what they are. It's
Right.
not so easy. What I would say, John, is that just to keep it in experience, the way that we experience an emotion is as both a sensation, usually a visceral sensation in the core of the body, and a kind of an energy that's there, we could say, for the purpose of driving us into action. So fear is there to get us to run away from danger. Anger is there to get us to battle or fight or seize or protect. Shame is to get us to behave in accordance with what we believe others would wish, and so on. Obviously more complicated than that, but there's an energy that activates us, that moves us, creates behavior, and then there's sensation that's often either aversive or pleasant that causes us to push away or to grasp. And that energy and that sensation come together, and that experience generates thoughts, and thoughts also generate emotions. So we get caught in this loop, this cycle of emotions that create thoughts, oh, this is a disaster, and so we feel anxious, and then I'm going to get killed, so we feel more anxious, and we create this positive feedback loop. I think that thoughts are different, and I mean, not just because they come from a different brain region. Like I do believe neuroscience that much. I teach neuroscience, but I don't believe that it's the end of the story. But emotions and thoughts come from really different regions of the brain, and I think that they're distinct. At least that's how I think that it's convenient to view them in order to work with them skillfully. Okay, I am right at my time boundary.
Awesome.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank the rest of you for coming and practicing with me.